would you describe the season that Travis Kelce had this year?
Well, I mean, I've seen a bunch of them, and I'd say this year's season has been just as good as a lot of them that I've seen. I mean, I go back to when we all were in these conversations earlier in the year and talking about did he lose a step and he's not getting the football, and then like 3 games later, I know Rasheed got hurt, but I think he had like 16 targets one game. And the beautiful part about Trav is that he does not care about it. He wants to continue to just keep winning. He cares about these trophies. He cares about winning. He's extremely unselfish. How he takes care of his body in practice throughout the week. It's just special. You know, you're not going to see many tight ends like him, and what he does is rare. I'd say he's having a hell of a season right now, and I think if you ask any of these guys, they're ready to just keep this thing going.
He's had some big games for you guys
Yeah.
over the years in the playoffs, as you know.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know how a game's going to go, but can you see him bringing that kind of game
Yeah.
again in the postseason?
You can, and I go back to last year, Adam, where I remember we hit at the end of the season, we had the game against the Chargers, and it was a game that Trav wasn't playing, and I remember it kind of sparking him a little bit physically, mentally, all that kind of gave him a jump. I felt like, at least I think, he came back in the playoffs, and all the guys, not just Kelce, but I remember him just having just a little extra more, and it's critical when you can get to that point for some guys that are, you know, he's been doing this a long time. He's got more reps than most people in this league. So when you can take advantage of that and get these type of games where you get a bye week, for him, it's massive, taking you into what matters the most in the playoffs.
Trying to keep them sharp over what would be a pretty extended layoff before they play again.
Yeah, they know that it's their job, number one. Number two, they have to stay prepared whichever way it goes, and they do a good job with that. It's important. I mean, this entire time as they go through this process, they know that, too, if they're not playing, it's their role, too, to become another coach and be there. And then also, you have to be ready, too. I mean, you never know how things go in the game, and if you're up and you're suited and ready to go. That's why I think, like, sometimes as you go through this process, the mental challenge and the hurdles of preparing, you know, all week, you can't let that slip. You got to prepare and keep it the same, and I think that's very important for these guys.
Pat's time to throw is just way down recently. I guess how much legwork behind the scenes for you and your team did you have to pick certain things that could fit that?
You know, we do some of that. It's always interesting when you hear some of that time stuff that goes on, because it can be just a matter of, half a second that can make the world of difference. But I think big thing in general is just the fact that we feel really good. We're kind of, from where we've been throughout the season, these last couple games, we've felt good with the rhythm that we've been in, whether it's passing the ball, running the football, et cetera. I like where we're at, and you want to be kind of peaking in that the way we are right now.
How exciting has it been that Worthy is hitting that stride while you get Brown back in the mix, and it does seem like there is some chemistry already with Mahomes and Brown.
Yeah, I love it. It's again, you've heard me relate it to Rasheed, but that's real. Xavier's done a great job of staying patient the entire season. He's been great with the players. It's been a fun process for him, and now as we continue to kind of go into these moments and these games, he's going to realize that when we get to the playoffs, it steps up even more and things get even faster. But it's been really fun to see this offense start to come together, and getting Hollywood back too certainly helps that.
A couple things about the turnovers. I mean, you guys are in kind of a historic role with not producing all of a sudden. Sorry to bring it up.
Yeah, don't be jinxing that.
Yeah. but I wonder if you could speak to, I mean, obviously it's always a point of emphasis.
Yeah.
Why has it been different these last few weeks? And one other thing about it after that.
Well, number one, there's a lot of teams that thrive off of that turnover, and it flips the field, gives them a short field on offense. And I think there's a balance. Like, Pat's been phenomenal the last several weeks of being good decision making, and his accuracy has been really, really good. So all of that comes together. The running backs, the ball carriers, you want to make sure you talk about it. You don't want to overdo it, but there's a balance to making sure that they know it. Pittsburgh last week, they're special now, and they're elite at what they do with getting the ball. We showed clips of them just punching the ball out all week long of times that they don't get the ball. And so I feel like there's some times where the players, as crazy as it sounds, when they're in the middle of the play, like real quick, it clicks in their brain, ball security. And then they think about it against a really good team like Pittsburgh that does that.
The flip side of that is just how you've benefited from what the defense has been doing.
Yeah.
How much has that changed sort of the offensive production.
It's massive. You look at turnover margin in the NFL, and if you can protect the football and get the football, you look at those teams in the history of the years here now, the teams that have the good turnover margin ratio, you'll have a chance to go far. And so when we lock in on that and focus out, when the defense does it on both ends, it can be pretty fun.
Matt, how would you describe the season that Travis Kelce had this year?
Well, I mean, I've seen a bunch of them, and I'd say this year's season has been just as good as a lot of them that I've seen. I mean, I go back to when we all were in these conversations earlier in the year and talking about did he lose a step and he's not getting the football, and then like 3 games later, I know Rasheed got hurt, but I think he had like 16 targets one game. And the beautiful part about Trav is that he does not care about it. He wants to continue to just keep winning. He cares about these trophies. He cares about winning. He's extremely unselfish. How he takes care of his body in practice throughout the week. It's just special. You know, you're not going to see many tight ends like him, and what he does is rare. I'd say he's having a hell of a season right now, and I think if you ask any of these guys, they're ready to just keep this thing going.
He's had some big games for you guys
Yeah.
over the years in the playoffs, as you know.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know how a game's going to go, but can you see him bringing that kind of game
Yeah.
again in the postseason?
You can, and I go back to last year, Adam, where I remember we hit at the end of the season, we had the game against the Chargers, and it was a game that Trav wasn't playing, and I remember it kind of sparking him a little bit physically, mentally, all that kind of gave him a jump. I felt like, at least I think, he came back in the playoffs, and all the guys, not just Kelce, but I remember him just having just a little extra more, and it's critical when you can get to that point for some guys that are, he's been doing this a long time. He's got more reps than most people in this league. So when you can take advantage of that and get these type of games where you get a bye week, for him, it's massive, taking you into what matters the most in the playoffs.
Now, I wanted to ask you about Nico Rubio.
Yeah.
He obviously been on the field for the last few weeks with McColl's absence. Just what have you seen from him and the progress that he's made?
Extremely patient this whole year. There's been times where maybe he felt like he was going to be up. He came in training camp and had a hell of a training camp. Special teams was a massive part of it. We had these talks back then, and I think it definitely tests your patience to be able to know that when the time is right, you'll get your chance. He's done that. He's had a chance now to return some punts. He's been thrown in there a few times on offense, and he does a lot of things right, and he's still learning, but man, the kid plays so tough. He's a true professional. You've heard me use those words before about him, and I'm excited for him because you root for kids like him.
Last one, let's go Nate and Todd.
Matt, have you seen something quite similar to what Joe Toney was able to do in a 3-game stretch in 11 days, and potentially maybe continuing to play out of his natural position?
I don't know if I have, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of great defensive ends in this league, a lot of great pass rushers. The gauntlet that he went up against these last couple weeks, I know people talk about it, but and there's going to be plays where it's not perfect and he gets beat. That's okay. I mean, he's one of the best guards in the game to go out and play tackle. I love the fact that you're bringing the question up because I think he deserves a ton of recognition for that. And I know internally we appreciate that. And whichever way it goes moving forward, we'll see, and that's up to coach. But the other part too is like you look at these guys, and when you present something to him, he's such a selfless guy that he just wants to do what's best for the team. There's some people that might not want to do that. He doesn't care, and I think that just speaks to the culture of the environment that we have here.
Last one.
A couple of things. First, Andy said yesterday that Carson playing this week will allow Patrick to do some things that he doesn't typically do in practice. What kind of things will he be doing this week as the not starter?
Probably, if anything, I'm guessing coach is probably talking a little bit more mental, just being able to take a step back, almost as a coach, and see it from our perspective when you're not in the play. And then on game day too, I know in these times in the past when Pat can be on the sideline in these moments and kind of see from a coach's perspective what it's like. Sometimes it's a good little reset for you, but he continues to make sure that he's working his feet. Like yesterday, he was back in the back working his feet and trying to keep that going. And more than anything, honestly, it's the mental. just seeing different angles of it.
And what have you seen from Carson so far as you guys are getting ready for this? This is a big opportunity for him to get to go out and have the keys to the offense.
Yeah, he made a little joke yesterday in practice that this is the most he's talked, and it was like one day. It's like he's talked more in one day than he has all year. We kind of chuckled about that, but you know, you just root. I've been following Carson, we all have, but I've been following him from the day he came in this league, and not really knowing him until this year, to see how he's handled himself as a unbelievable number 2 and backup, and what he did in training camp. Now he's going to get an opportunity, and you really appreciate people like him that literally this is not different for him because he's going to start. It's not any different than any week that he goes into. When you find guys like that throughout the season that are like that every week, they're out there, but they're hard to find, and especially when you're as talented as he is. So as a coach, you get pumped up, you get excited, and you want to go out there and do everything you can to help him go out and lead the team to a win.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Has that always been up there?
Sometimes
Yeah.
the TV's off.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't hear it. All right, I'm just fired up to play another game. So we've had a little bit of time off here. It feels like ever that we've been here, right? Those extra days in there help. But with that, I'll just kind of open it up and let you guys fire away.
Hey, Steve, two things about the turnovers. Obviously, you guys emphasize it all the time,
Yeah.
but sometimes they come in streaks.
Yeah.
Okay, I wonder how you account for it, and then I'll have a second thing about it.
You know, I will say this. You know, so the fumble. I'm thinking of a couple of them. Like Leo, always. You know, if you watch Leo in practice, he's always doing. He had that a couple games ago, or they're running together now. That was a couple games ago, right? It was Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I will credit the guys on the back end for the catches that they're making. Justin Reed's last week, and the one Brian Cook made back in the Cleveland game. I mean, those guys work at that all the time. So, and we always say, catch the ones he throws to you, because you don't get that many opportunities, right? And you'd have to help me memory-wise, but I don't think I can remember, NJ, Nazi had one in the Cleveland game that we actually dropped. But I don't know that there's been many of actual drops. So the good thing is that recently the opportunities have been there and the guys have made the catches, so that part's good.
Is it one of those things that over time you keep preaching the same thing, and over time you figure
Eventually
that'll even out? Or, I mean, has there been some magic in the
Yeah,
last
if the
month?
football gods are fair, then hopefully it does even out, you know. Because listen, for a while there, it was real thin, right? Didn't we won a few games there where we didn't have a turnover. So it's nice to see us get them. Now listen, we can't guarantee that's going to happen in the games going forward. We got to play good, solid defense whether we get them or not. But it's certainly, listen, we know what that stat means in terms of wins and losses. So we're going to always emphasize
And
that.
then just back to the last thing on what that stat has meant, or with just the tangible impact you see game to game, both on
Yeah.
the defense and offense.
I mean, it's a team thing, right? You win the turnover ratio, you got a pretty good chance. I mean, your percentages go way up of winning the game. You know, that and fourth down stops, you know, big special teams plays, right? Those seem to tip the game in your favor. So the more of those we can get, the better.
Steve, regardless of who's going to play, the guys that don't play on Sunday, what's the process of trying to keep
Yeah.
them sharp ahead of the playoffs?
So the first PowerPoint that I put up on Tuesday was, do not lose your edge. Like, you know, and we went 2.5 months of off-season work. We went, whatever it's been, 5.5 months since July of all this work to get to this point. You know, why would we back off? Why would we lose our edge? I'm talking about in preparation and how the guys practice, what they might do with their bodies, physically rest, all those things. So that was an emphasis at the beginning. You know, we've also challenged our guys, look, depending on where this all goes, and we got this week 18 to figure out who the playoff team, there's a chance we play this team again. So if I'm sitting there, you know, listening to all the information about Denver's offense, I want to accumulate that to be ready for this, not only this game, but in the chance that we end up playing them again.
It seems sort of unprecedented, I mean, league-wide, even to have 24, 25, whatever it ends up, those amount of days off. Is there anything you can fall back on experience-wise?
Preseason, you know, when the guys don't play a lot. In the middle of the season at the end, maybe not. Yeah, because we played on a Wednesday, right? That was a little unique. I mean, I know I've been on teams where we've had the last game, right? But it was only a 7-day window and not this 10 or 11 days, whatever it is. So it's a little bit more extra time. But, you know, hopefully that's a benefit. You know, we'll see where that goes. But hopefully it's a benefit. Listen, I trust our guys. The guys that won't play as much, they seem fully in tune to me.
It seems like Chris obviously won't go. Do you anticipate backing off guys like Trent and certain?
I don't like leave Andy. That's Andy's decision, and whatever he decides by the time we get to Sunday, we'll roll with. And I think the guys feel the same way. Like they're ready to go either way. Coach, what do you want us to do, Coach? And if they got to go, they'll go, and if not, that'll be Coach's decision.
The interesting thing about this game is, in the past, like last year we played, the Chargers weren't trying to make the playoffs. I mean, they wanted to win the game.
Good point.
But
Yeah.
the Broncos likely need to win this game. So what's that line like, giving them the best that you can give them and resting your guys? How do you kind of...
That's the head coach. I go back to Andy. I mean, he makes that decision. Listen, we're in our meetings with everybody getting ready to play against Denver's offense. All hands on deck. Again, Chris may be a little bit different because of the injury he's dealing with. And all those guys, to a man, are working that way in the meetings that we've had, in these walkthroughs, and now getting ready to have another practice. That's not going to change, and it's a really good point. We're going to get their best. It's not they're not experimenting, with getting ready for the future or anything. They're getting ready for a playoff run. So whoever we put out there has got to play their best.
Can you speak to what you've seen from Bo Nix through this year
Yeah,
and what he's
wow.
building?
Yeah, I'm really impressed. Listen, I didn't study him in college. I heard the name, knew about him. But we played him a few weeks back in that week 9. I thought he was really good then, and he's just even gotten better. Full command of that offense that they run. Has been really smart with the football, and he's a really good athlete. This might sound shocking, but when he tucks it and runs, I get visions of Josh Allen. Like he can go, and he's a pretty good sized guy too. He might not be as big as Josh, but so there's that whole feature, and we've got to get better at containing, controlling quarterbacks from hurting us with their feet.
Steve, for the starters who won't go on Sunday, how do you want them to stay engaged in the game?
What they've been doing, even then, and I'm sure they'll do it on Sunday, is they've been right there next to the person that might be in there for them. I think that keeps them engaged because they've got to know the game plan to help feed it or help the guys along the way. So, we got some really good guys that way. As I stand in that meeting, and I've said this to you before, when you stand in front of a meeting, you see everybody. You can see faces, you can see eyes nod, the whole thing. And I see all these guys staying fully in tune. They got their computers, and I don't type, I write, but they type. And I think they're staying in tune.
Couple more.
It's head coach season. I know in the past you've mentioned wanting potentially to have that.
Yeah.
Is that still something? I know you're preparing for this week. Is that
Yeah.
still something that you'd like in the future? Or something?
I mean, well, I'll deal with that later. I mean, listen, yeah, the answer is yes. But right now, it's all about Denver, and I hadn't even thought about that road until you just mentioned it. So I'll let all that take care of itself.
You talk about maintaining that edge. I know you might have talked about this earlier, but have you seen some of that here in the early weeks, just kind of how some of those guys are doing it after you challenge them?
Yeah, I do see them. Listen, I see them challenging each other to maintain their edge. The greatest thing about these guys, they've been around each other long enough, they can get on each other when they make a mistake or miss something. So we're out there in a walkthrough, and I hear one guy saying to the other guy, "Hey, didn't you hear him say that in the meeting?" So that's a good thing. To me, that's maintaining the edge.
Steve, just a side thought related to that. Do you, over the years, have you, even though you're doing your utmost every game during the regular season, do you sense an extra gear within this team for playoffs?
That would probably be a pretty fair statement. I mean, I think, we got vets in that room that have been down this road and know what it takes to get to where we would like to go. It takes a next level of preparation. It takes a next level of taking care of your body and getting sleep, all that, all those, we got a checklist of things you need to do to go win a championship, and I think now everybody's fully in tune to checking all those boxes every week.
And do you think that's the sort of thing that, obviously by doing it and having that success over time,
The experience of going through it, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, when you get a team that has never been through it, you're probably always coaching up what you need to do to get ready for these, and I think most of our guys in that locker room, except for the guys that are new this year, probably know what all that takes.
Thanks,
We good? All right.